Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review the Munsters movie by Rob Zombie. Now, number one, I'd like to just mention, since everyone else in the whole universe talked about the trailer, I just wanted to add in my own 2 cents as well, because I was literally like the only person who didn't make a video about the trailer. I gotta say, like, the trailer for this movie is the worst trailer I've ever seen for a movie. Like, it just completely misrepresented the movie. It completely... it was so horrible. Like, the trailer, it looks so bad. It looks so unfunny and stupid and like almost laughably bad. But then when you watch the actual movie, it's a lot different. And now here's the thing. I've never seen the Munsters show. I did watch a 10-minute clip after I finished the movie because I wanted to have a little point of comparison, a little point of reference to think about, like, you know, the performances, how they compare on the show versus the movie. And in terms of Rob Zombie movies, I think that he's a good filmmaker. I'm more of a fan of him, like, as a person, like as a filmmaker, than I am of his movies. Like, whenever he makes movies, he does these really good behind-the-scenes documentaries where, you know, they're like 4 hours long of just like behind-the-scenes goodness. And you can just imagine, like, what if Rob Zombie had made this movie? What if he had made that movie? You know, thinking about like all the classic movies that we could have seen with these really great behind-the-scenes videos. That's what I think about when I think of Rob Zombie, because when I was younger and I was just watching movies and not trying to make them myself, I would just watch that Halloween 2007 behind-the-scenes documentary over and over and over again, because it was so much fun. Like, the way that he makes movies, it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like everyone there has a lot of fun. And in terms of his movies, I don't really like House of a Thousand Corpses very much. I think it's just kind of it reminds me, what if you had made a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 tribute movie? Like, what if you had made like a student film called Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 2022 or something? The Devil's Rejects, I thought, was pretty good, although it's pretty, I don't really want to watch it again. And then 3 from Hell was pretty bad. I mean, it was pretty bad. It was pretty disappointing because of some of the plot choices, which, you know, rest in peace to Sid Haig, because losing him was sad in that film. But actually, the worst plot choices had to do with other characters. Like, they had... Well, I won't get into that, because I already did a review of that movie years ago. And then Halloween 1 and 2, I have, like, a mixed feeling about both of them. Like, the first one, I really love a lot of stuff in it. When I was younger, I really loved that movie a lot. I really thought that, you know, it was a good movie, but now I just kind of look at it as like unnecessary. And then Halloween 2, I hate the theatrical cut, but I think that the director's cut is actually really, really good, and it has a lot of great ideas in it. Unfortunately, I still think it just doesn't come together. So here we are, The Munsters 2022. I'm really glad that I decided to watch this movie, because it was a very positive and fun movie. It really it had a great deal of positive energy. And that's something that a lot of things that come out nowadays they don't seem to have, because they're so busy being like ultra serious, and they want you to be really scared and take everything seriously. And I loved how this movie, instead of that, it just had fun. And you could tell that the people who made the movie, they're really big fans of the Munsters, probably, because you can just tell like every single choice in the movie feels purposeful. Like every single, and when I watched that 10-minute clip of the actual show, I made all these little connections from the movie, and I was like, oh my God, there's that. Like, it was so, like, mind-blowing. It just made me think, like, see, now we need more movies like this, where you have a real fan of the original property making the movie. You don't have it like with these, superhero movies where they're just like, hey, let's hire that up-and-coming talent, even though they're not fans of the property. I hate when they do that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves of movies, is when they hire people who aren't fans of the original movies and shows to do the movies and shows. It doesn't make any sense at all. So I really actually, I like this movie a lot. I think it's one of the best movies I've seen all year. I do think that it has quite a few issues that you could talk about, but I think that overall it was such a great experience. It reminded me a lot of when I used to go trick-or-treating, just the experience of walking around a neighborhood and seeing all the different haunted houses and seeing other people's costumes. That was sort of the experience of this movie, was like this ultra Halloween-y experience. So let's just talk about the characters really quickly. I thought that Herman, Daniel Roebuck, he's a really good actor. He's highly underrated, and he was, of course, in what was my favorite movie as a kid, which was Halloween, The Happy Haunting of America. I used to rent that documentary all the time as a kid, and of course he hosted that documentary, and I never even figured out he was an actor until like a couple of years ago. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I actually thought he did a really good job. I was glad that he got a starring role. I mean, it would be really nice if Rob Zombie made another movie with him in the starring role. I thought that he was fantastic. Very, very funny at certain points. And he really played the character well. I mean, the problems with his character, they weren't really to do with him. They were to do with some of the script decisions. And then Lily, now everybody criticizes him hiring his wife over and over and over again. I actually thought she did a pretty good job as well. And I thought that the whole cast did a great job. But the thing that I liked about her character, and the thing that I liked about basically all the characters, was that they weren't really trying to do replications of the old characters as much as they were trying to me it was like they're just capturing the spirit of those characters. And I think that sometimes that's the best you can do. I don't think anyone will ever replace that guy who played Herman in the original show. I mean, he was an iconic actor, and he had an iconic voice and an interesting, unique face. And I don't think that anyone could ever replicate that exactly without, some sort of what would you call it, like a crack in the boat or something like that, like a leak in the boat. Like, nobody's ever going to be able to replicate these characters exactly. And so I actually really liked all three of them. And of course, I thought that Herman was the best. I thought that it was so funny the way that he was like this shitty comedian, and his voice is just so unlike the original Herman that it actually seemed like purposeful that he would have this voice that was like the polar opposite, and it's like this really funny voice that he has, and he's just such a show off, and he's such a all of them are so cool. I really thought that the characters were done 100% right in terms of like they were all really funny and really entertaining to watch. And then Lester, the werewolf guy, he was pretty good. He had a lesser sort of character. He wasn't in the movie as much. And then I thought one of the best characters who wasn't in the movie as much was Orlok, which is of course Nosferatu, as people more they more so whenever people see this guy, they call him Nosferatu. They don't even call him Count Orlok. I call him Nosferatu. In fact, I thought that he was hilarious. The part where he's showing all these pictures of himself and all these rats. I thought that was just... That's when I realized that I was really going to like the movie, and that I was wrong, and that the trailer was a complete mislead, and that I should not have even probably watched the trailer, although it was it was very funny. People's videos that they made about it. Because it was just such a bad trailer. It was so bad. Even the movie looked better than the trailer. Like, the trailer looked like as people have said, like a cheap Halloween commercial. But the movie actually looked a lot better than I expected. There were some sort of fake looking moments. I think especially during the creation of Herman, they had this really, really odd looking sequence where, the camera's shaking all around, and it was just so wacky and over the top that I felt like it was like a music video or something. And so that there were a couple of moments like that, but overall, I really loved the look of the movie too. It had such a gothic, Halloween-y atmosphere. It was so colorful and bright and fun looking, and I really loved the look of the movie. And so I would say that, pretty much all the things that the trailer showed that people criticized, they were all much better than I would have ever expected. So, now that we've gone over all the main characters and pretty much everything else, let's get on to the story. And what did I mean by everything else if I haven't even finished talking about the film yet? That was stupid. The story, I kind of liked the story a lot until they moved to the Mockingbird Lane later on in the film, because the story, for the most part, is just about Lily trying to find a guy to marry. And she ends up finding Herman, and Herman is created, and it's sort of like the Munsters origin story. And it to me, it really does serve well as a TV pilot. Like, this really didn't feel... And I wouldn't want a TV show, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't want to watch, like, a 30-minute episode of this every week. I just want to watch another movie. If they did make one, which, after they treated him so fairly with that horrible trailer, misleading people about the movie, I don't think they will, unfortunately. But the story, it was simple, but it was funny. It had all these great moments. It had all these points where it's like, oh, I remember that. That was funny. What was my favorite part? That's a hard thing to. I think my favorite part was probably seeing them all eat dinner together at first. Like when Herman finally meets when he wait a second. Wait, how did I just completely forget that name? Wait a second. Herman and the oh shit. The vampire guy. God, what was that? I talked about his name earlier on in the film. What the? You have Herman, Lily, and what the? This isn't fair. I just completely blanked on the. That's gonna irritate me so much. Because I feel like, people are going to get the impression that the movie is bad because I just completely forgot. But sometimes, I just draw a complete blank on things unexpectedly, and I guess this is one of those times. When you see all three of them eat dinner together for the first time, though, they're having like a scorpion casserole, which I can remember that, but I can't remember the name of this character. I thought that it was great fun seeing them together. They had great chemistry together, and they really worked well as the Munster family, as they did in the show. They have a different dynamic, though. I mean, it's, as I said, it's not the same characters, but still, I think it really does embody the spirit of the show. I think it's just a lot of fun, very funny, very positive. However, now let's talk about the negatives. Now, there's a certain point in the movie where there's also this running plot where the vampire guy, God damn it, I wish I could remember that fucking name, and I can't rewind the tape to see the name because the tape is recording right now. Sophie! She can't hear me. Sorry. I was gonna ask Sophie. There's a point where there's this subplot kind of. Well, I guess it's a main plot, but it's I don't know. I don't know, because that's the thing. You have these two main plots. You have one plot where Lily is trying to find a husband, which that plot is very well done. It's a nice little simple, fun 60s sitcom type of plot. And then you have the plot of the vampire guy's ex-wife, and she really is mad at him for breaking her heart, and so she wants to steal his castle away from him and his family. And so then Lester, the werewolf brother, he ends up actually swindling Herman into signing over the castle, which forces them all to move to Mockingbird Lane. That plot line, it's weird because it feels a lot like in Better Call Saul, when you know that they wanted to keep Nacho alive, or when you know that they wanted to do these certain things with these characters and these stories, but they couldn't because of how things turned out in Breaking Bad. And so it really feels like disjointed and sort of like forced, the way that, they lose the castle and they have to move to Mockingbird Lane, and then they move to their iconic house for like 2 seconds of the movie. it felt very much like, really? Like, really? Like, there's not going to be any fight between the ex-wife and Herman. I mean, not Herman, the vampire guy, who I can't remember his name. I'm gonna, just, fucking drill that into my head after this. Like, just say his name over and over and over and over and over again. Just so that I can tell you guys in the next video and make you guys know that I'm not an idiot. And so, but I thought that was a little strange, the way that there were these plots that were like very, very major plots, where you have this woman who's like heartbroken by a vampire guy. And also, it really all centers around the vampire guy being a douchebag. I mean, he's not really kindly like he is in the show until he is finally in his iconic house, where it's weird. It's like the whole movie, he's really, really like just completely, he's sort of a jackass. And so I thought that was funny. Honestly, a lot of people had a problem with that. I thought that it was funny. But he makes this like sudden transformation where all of a sudden, like, he's just like not that way anymore. And it's really hard because that never happens with people. People don't just transform like that overnight. And so it was really strange how as soon as they moved to Mockingbird Lane, he's just like the nice guy from the show, and it's completely, everything is okay. I didn't really like that. I thought that was stupid because it connects to these two plots. On one hand, he really wanted to stop Lily from being with Herman, which I couldn't blame him, honestly, because his brain is from an idiot and a terrible comedian and just a doofless. And so you're kind of rooting for him a little bit. And then also you have the thing with, he broke someone's heart, apparently. This Zvulia or something. Zuvia. Let's just call her Stevia. He broke Stevia's heart. And so you have these two conflicts, and they're never resolved at all. Like, they just resolve sort of like off screen or something. Like, it's like, okay, my ex-wife just completely stole my castle out from under me that I've been living in for centuries. Whoops. I guess that's that. And then, Lily's married to Herman. Whoop. I guess that's that. Whatever. It's very weird. It's very, very weird. And I really didn't like how those two plots didn't ever go anywhere at the end. Like, I thought, the movie was doing so well. And it was still okay at the end. I mean, at the end, it felt almost like a completely different movie, where it was the tribute to the show that probably people wanted, where they look outside and they look all around, and it was like a real like origin type of scene where you're feeling like, okay, the characters are exactly where they need to be, doing the exact things they need to be doing, and saying the exact things they need to be doing, to the point of where they literally all just sit on the couch. Or no, actually, there was a little bit of a payoff at the end where it's like, how do we get money? Because we're in this house, but how do we get any money? Like, we don't even want to go out anywhere because people are so scary. They're scarier than us, and we're monsters. And then Lester finally comes back and he says, here's your share of the swindling of the castle or something. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're rich, we don't have to worry about money. And then the movie immediately ends. And then they show the opening theme. There's like a recreation of the opening theme. and that's it. I thought that the ending was especially disappointing because when I first heard about him making a Munsters movie, I was hoping for it to be something where he's taking maybe a story that he would really like to tell in this universe, and he's doing that, and it fits in with the canon, Cobra Kai, for example. But instead, it just kind of feels like a pilot episode to a new Munster show that still wouldn't be as good as the original, obviously. And so I thought it was disappointing how, instead of, you could have still had the thing at the end with, okay, now they're at their place in the show and you can now watch the show and it'll make sense. I was hoping for some other things to happen before that happened, though. If those two plots had just resolved, then I would have been happier. How does Vampire Guy, how does he go from being jackass old man to being pretty nice guy, old man, kind of a jackass a little bit? How do how do you go from that way to that way in just 2 seconds? It doesn't make any sense. And Lily had this whole plot that never got resolved, where, she's like, oh, you didn't fall for one of Lester's stupid schemes, did you? I would be so devastated if I learned that my new husband fell for one of his dumb-ass schemes. And so there's drama right there. It never gets resolved or anything. Nothing ever comes of that. She's a little disappointed, but that's it. That's it completely. And so it almost felt like either they ran out of money or they ran out of time. Because it really felt like you had these plots that I was expecting. Okay, where are these plots going to go at the end? Where are they going to go? And then they don't go anywhere. And it's oh, now we're on to the actual show. 1960s Hollywood, normal people walking around, and they're really scary. And also, I would like to mention that there was this sequence that people, that they made a big deal about seeing all these different monsters in the trailer. And I would say that it fully makes sense. It doesn't feel a lot of people said it felt like they were trying to just shove as many monsters in there as possible. I didn't really feel like that at all. There was a really good musical sequence where Frankenstein, Herman was, and Lily were, they were visiting with one of their relatives, which was the creature from the Black Lagoon. And I actually really liked that sequence. I thought that was a ton of fun. They showed a lot of old movie clips in this movie, just people watching these older things. They showed this crappy episode of Leave It to Beaver where they wear these Halloween masks and then Beaver gets scared or something like that. Or was that episode they showed? It was a Leave It to Beaver episode. It was one of the crappy later ones, though. It wasn't one of the best ones. But they also showed, which is in my opinion the best Abbott and Costello monster movie, which is Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I would highly recommend watching that movie and then watching this movie maybe, because these are both good movies for sure. And then also you had this guy who was sort of like the Dr. Frankenstein, and you had his assistant, I guess, I can't remember his name. He was sort of goofy, and he came up with the name Herman Munster. I thought that they were okay, but they didn't really. They also kind of had this strange dropped plot arc where the Dr. Frankenstein thought that he was going to create the smartest man alive besides him, and instead he creates the stupidest man alive. Well, he reanimates him, I mean. And there's never really anything that comes of that. Like, you'd think maybe he would try to destroy Herman, and then that's what would make Vampire Guy, the vampire father, the vampire father. What's that fucking guy's name? What's that guy's name? What's that guy's name? You could have a story like where Frankenstein doctor's trying to destroy him, and then Lily doesn't want it to happen, and it would bring the vampire guy and her together, and it would bring them all together, or something like that. You know, you could just do something like that, something simple like that. But instead you have all these sort of little plot points that just kind of drop off. And in a way, though, it is very reminiscent of in these 1960s shows where they would literally just drop plots off the face of the earth, and they would drop characters off the face of the earth, like especially the good old Andy Griffith Show, where one episode Andy has the sexy girlfriend, and the next episode it's like she never existed, and it's so creepy that it gives me like shivers thinking about it, because it's like, you know, no normal person would actually think that that is like acceptable if they're making a show or a movie. And also, the only other bad thing was there were some jokes that fell flat throughout the movie, obviously, you know, but I don't really think that it affected the movie for me that much, because I was having such a fun, positive experience that I really didn't care at all. And so in terms of food, I'm going to have to rate this movie a childhood favorite. Now, a childhood favorite doesn't necessarily mean it's a favorite now, so keep that in mind. One of the things that I loved eating as a kid, of the many things that I loved eating as a kid, was Chef Boyardee's beefaroni. And I'm sure people are thinking, wow, that is a glowing endorsement of this movie, Chef Boyardee's beefaroni. But actually, it really is. When I was a kid, I really loved beefaroni. I would eat it sometimes when I was homesick, or sometimes like on the weekends and things. And I really, really loved beefaroni a lot until now. Like, I would eat it like just so much, and it seemed like it was so good. Like it was such a positive comfort type of food, and it brought so much joy. And of course the ravioli did too, until I grew out of liking that. Ugh, gross. But the ravioli is like, oh god, like I don't even want to know what's in that ravioli in that can. Like, that's how bad it is. So, the Munsters movie by Rob Zombie, it is Chef Boyardee's beefaroni, and I would highly recommend it. I mean, I think it's a Peacock free thing. I think it's free on Peacock, or it's gonna be, and so I would highly recommend watching it. And please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of the Munsters movie, because I know that a lot of people are going to hate it, and that's fine, because, you know, I'll be the one person who likes it then. Like, I'm that type of person. I'm not going to just pretend like, oh, I hated the trailer, so I had to hate the movie too. No, I really, really like this movie a lot. I would watch it again, actually. In fact, I might have Safi watch it so that we can talk about it. And then, And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.